Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Look who's here. I guess for Irish people it is Thanksgiving. Congressman Buddy Carter with House Budget and House Energy and Commerce, and also Forbes Media Chair, Editor-in-Chief Steve Forbes, my former boss. Okay, Congressmen and gentlemen, thanks for joining us, Steve, both of you tonight.
Thank
Congressman,
you.
What are you hearing in Washington about the bank crisis? Because the news is coming in. Here's what we know so far. This past week or so, the Federal Reserve has loaned to U.S. banks more than half what was extended in the 2008 crisis. All in, Congressman, it's about $483 billion. It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, and I'll be quite honest with you, I have mixed emotions about this because this is capitalism at work, and in capitalism you do have failures from time to time. But what we do recognize, and what the Treasury Department and what our conference recognizes, is these were isolated incidents. These were bad banks that were being managed bad, and the leadership has been removed, they've been fired, and they're going to be held accountable for what they did. But I can't help but wonder, if this were a bank in rural Georgia, would it have been treated the same as these banks in California are treated? And I'm not sure that's the case, and that bothers me a lot. But I will tell you, I do think these are isolated incidents.
But, yeah, it's not 2008, but is it? What do you think, Steve? Is there something else out there that, you know, they lent too much to bad tech startups who were just foundering and didn't deserve the money, and then they just expect a bailout?
No, I think what you saw in the past year was that the Silicon Valley Bank continued to make loans that they shouldn't have made, since high tech was now going to be in rough waters. It was clear a year ago that the boom was going to be coming to an end as the Federal Reserve raised interest rates. There was a correlation between the stock market and interest rates. So they continued doing the same old thing when things shouldn't have been done the same old way. They got in a deadly rut, and not having a risk officer online, focusing on irrelevancies, total irrelevancies given the situation, like trying to be a climate champions and things like that. Sort of reminds you, Liz, of what happened with the CDC before the COVID crisis. They were concerned about climate change instead of about viruses.
Yeah, they're concerned about the risk from climate change, but not the risk in the balance sheet. Before I get back to you, Congressman, Steve, how bad do you think this gets?
I think they're going to contain it, but the big question now is, why didn't the Federal Reserve make big loans to the bank, the Silicon Valley Bank, last week? It's supposed to be lender of last resort. I think they could have stemmed this crisis before it became a contagion that is hitting innocent banks in regions of the country. And the Congressman, Buddy Carter's absolutely right. If this had happened in Texas or some other states and the big business was not high tech, but gas and oil, you know what would have happened. Would have been much less solicitous. But I think what you have to watch out for now, Liz, is a lot of companies took on a lot of debt with zero interest rates, and a lot of countries, Japan, for example, has debt twice proportionally than the United States. So you're going to see these ongoing crises, not just in banking, but in the economy after a generation of disastrous zero-rate policies on interest rates.
Yeah, and we've also got this. Congressman, we have images pouring in of the CEO of the collapsed Silicon Valley Bank, Gregory Becker, flying to his more than $3 million luxury home in a gated community in Hawaii, in Maui. This is the same Silicon Valley Bank CEO the DOJ is now investigating for allegedly selling nearly $3.6 million in stock just days before his bank collapsed.
And that's what upsets people so much. And when they see this on TV, that's what gets them fired up. This is, you know, appearance is important. And these people need to be held accountable. And I'll tell you, the regulators at the San Francisco Regional Fed, they need to be held responsible. They were asleep at the wheel. They weren't doing their job. They should have been on top of this and had never let this happen.
So, by the way, Steve, let's show the pictures again. This is a pretty nice beachfront gated community. It's got a tennis court, 3 swimming pools, a clubhouse. But, you know, the news coming in, Becker reportedly sold nearly $30 million of stock over the past 2 years, Steve.
Yeah, well, getting out while the getting's good. But I think a lot of that money, most of that money, is going to end up being clawed back. Unlike what happened in 2008, 2009, the political situation is much different today. People are going to demand. You were sold ahead of a disaster. You did not prevent the disaster. You should have seen some of the warning signs out there. Where humans were not perfect, but there are plenty of warning signs out there that the party was over. So I think you're going to see serious clawback. You'll see clawback legislation in Congress, and it will pass overwhelmingly.
What do you think, Congressman? Will there be clawback, you know, in Congress?
There sure as heck better be. If not, I'm going to demand it, and I think my colleagues will demand it on both sides of the aisle. Neither Democrats nor Republicans like to see this. No one, Americans don't like to see this. I mean, this just gives the wrong messages. It gives a message that it's back to that too big to fail, that we're not going to let this happen. I get it. I understand what the Treasury Department, what the administration is trying to do. They don't want to see a run on banks. People need not be concerned. This is not systemic. It is isolated, poor management.
Yeah, and just really weird behaviors. Reports coming in, Steve, that, we reported this. California Governor Newsom, Gavin Newsom, took a victory lap for working with the White House to rescue Silicon Valley Bank, but then critics slammed Newsom for not disclosing that he and his 3 wineries are personal clients of Silicon Valley Bank. And he's the same guy who, kept his winery open while he shut everybody else down during the pandemic, Steve.
Yeah, he's done everything he could to wreck the golden state of California. He probably celebrated the Silicon Valley thing by having a dinner at French Laundry. Remember that restaurant? And so I think this is one reason why, if he becomes the Democratic nominee in 2024, he'll suffer the fate of Jimmy Carter did back in 1980. He's mismanaged California every single way he could.
All right, Congressman Carter, Steve Forbes, thanks for joining us this St. Patrick's Day, and happy St. Patrick's Day to you both. Okay, look who's joining us now. We're so excited to have